Welcome to the Manuscript Academy podcast,
Brought to you by
a writer
and an agent.
who both believe that education is key
The beauty is the people you meet along the way.
and that community makes all the difference.
Here at the Manuscript Academy, you can learn the skills, make the connections, and have access to experts, all from home.
I'm Julie Kingsley.
And I'm Jessica Sinsheimer.
Put down your pens, pause your word counts, and enjoy.
Hello, everybody. We are here with Agent Stefanie Molina at Ladderbird Literary Agency, and today we're going to talk about why things in publishing take so darn long. Stefanie, tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Stefanie. I've been an agent at Ladderbird Literary Agency since 2021, representing everything from picture book to adult, including some adult nonfiction, mainly cookbooks. I'm also interested in sports and health, which is a new area for me. I'm still heavily fiction. I love genre, primarily working with BIPOC authors. I think that writing is activism in any form, whether it's slice of life or issue driven. So that kind of informs my choices and how I choose to support my authors.
What would you love to find in your inbox this year?
You know, towards the end of the year, I'm always craving some holiday magic, whether it's Halloween, spooky, or cozy Christmas. It doesn't have to be like holiday centric, but I just love like the feeling of the season, I guess. So, you know, it could be in spring, could be in summer, but it has that like cozy feeling. I love that. I'm especially looking for cozy mystery. That's a new one that I've kind of started to focus on looking for, and I haven't been able to pick one up yet. So yeah, I'd love to see more of those.
Oh, it's so interesting because I spent the whole weekend working on those themes too. And that's when I feel like writing those things. And that's always a problem with my writing. It's like, oh, I'm going to write a little Christmassy thing. And then in January, I'm like, wow. And just go back to regular writing. You said starting in 2021, which was the height of the pandemic. Can you talk to us a little bit? It was such a weird time to start. Ouch. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like starting then to what you're seeing now and what the changes? Because I feel like we have just moved into such a new time in publishing, almost like an era. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting starting during that time. I had a lot of people tell me how strange of a time it was, but because I hadn't experienced anything before that, it felt very normal to me. That was all I knew. So everyone was on Zoom, no one was meeting in person. And I think at that time too, a lot of editors were more willing to like get on a call together. I think the main difference from then to now is just everything has slowed down. I know from other people and a little bit from my own experience that like during the pandemic, there was a lot of book buying going on. Editors were trying to keep up with reading demand. And then after that, maybe like 2023, like late 2022, things were like, boom, like let's stop. People stop buying stuff. We can't buy as much anymore. So 2023 was a rough year for me and for a lot of other agents I know in terms of sales. And of course, that trickles down to writers. This year, I feel like it's picked up a little bit, which is really encouraging. And I'm very curious to get back to this place where maybe we were pre-pandemic that I haven't experienced yet.
So we are always trying to predict which trends are on the rise, which ones are about to be saturated, and which ones are on the way out. Could you give us a quick rundown of, as you see it, what's likely happening this year, what's likely happening next year? Of course, knowing that we can't predict this, just as we can't predict the weather, but people do love to speculate.
I feel like I get a lot of knowledge about trends from talking to editors, so what they're seeing in their inboxes. And I know I continue to hear like, okay, we're trying to slow down on food, we're trying to slow down on grandparents, and then constantly everyone is looking for something fresh. I think middle grade has been a hard sell for me and for some of the folks that I work with as well. That market, I think, is getting a little bit saturated. Some folks have been seeing like YA is on the come up. Maybe YA fantasy might be coming back. I've heard hints of like vampires maybe making a return, which surprised me. I'm not sure if that's really gonna happen or not. I think I'm excited to see where YA specifically will go because I am looking for YA. Right now, I'm mainly a picture book agent. And because of that, this year I have heavily been searching for middle grade and YA. And I just am looking for like fresh voices there and keeping an eye on what's selling and the newcomers to the scene. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
It makes me nervous when you say you're looking for something fresh. How does one know if they're fresh? How do you find that fresh story? Can you give tips to the
Yeah.
writers that are asking themselves this very question?
That's so funny because I feel like I feel the same way when editors tell me they want something fresh, or they'll say something like, "Oh, just send me anything you think I'll like." I'm like, "Okay, thanks." When I say fresh in the YA sphere, personally, I'm looking for something that steps outside the typical angsty voice that I feel like I see a lot of in my inbox specifically. Maybe what I mean is more I'm a little bit tired of certain tropes and I want new perspectives, new personalities on the page that maybe aren't what you would usually expect to see from like teen angst type book.
Well, it's always that tension between familiar enough that we know we can sell it and fresh enough that we want to read it and our colleagues want to read it too. It's not, oh, it's the 70th chosen one YA fantasy this week.
Yes, it always has to have something special about it, and voice is really big for me. So that's why I tend to focus on like the angsty voice or the hero voice. I'm not looking for those as much. I think part of this also stems from my passion for representing BIPOC authors and wanting those voices to appear more. I feel like the BIPOC teen experience is inherently different, and maybe that's where my brain is at.
Say more about that.
I think there are different pressures that BIPOC teens deal with, different levels of safety in their life. The nature of community for us is different. Community leans more heavily on that sense of safety, I would say, and belonging, rather than it's not always interest-based. Not that that can't be the case for teens who aren't BIPOC. And so I feel like I've found relationships in like BIPOC work can look a little bit different. The complexity and the issues that are informing communication. Yeah, there's just like a lot of different factors that weigh more heavily for BIPOC teens, different things that they're learning about, different things, bad things that are happening to them and around them. I feel like that really informs how the voice sounds and the outlook that they have.
Well, and if books can feel like community and community can feel like safety, then we are doing very important work helping these books get into the world.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. Going back to that idea of freshness, I just finished Res Dogs, which is my favorite show, I think, of the last, and I was just kind of late to it. And I loved it because they did so many different things with it. It was cultural, but it was also community. And it was also those stakes, exactly what you're talking about. And I think more of that is absolutely what is needed in this market, because the more we can all, just explore other people's point of view, the better we all are as a larger community. So yeah, so like fresh, multiple voices, all of these things, but let's take all that and then look at today's market. We talked a little before we came on how things have slowed down with communication and then sped up and then slowed down a little bit. So tell us like what you're seeing in your inbox and then what you're seeing on the editorial side as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like the communication slowdown has really hurt everyone at every level. Unfortunately, I think it sometimes can stem from the really higher ups at the publishing houses, and then it's trickling down. So people are getting laid off. Decisions are being made not to give people promotions or give them more money. And we saw, the HarperCollins union asking for pennies more, and then HarperCollins being like, no. I feel like that theme, just editors are not getting enough support. I don't know as much about the other departments, but my impression is that they, design and marketing are also not getting enough support. And because of that, communication on their end is slowing way, 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 way down. And it can be hard. I think what I've experienced is it's hard to coach authors through that. It's hard for them to understand how someone can be so busy that they can't send an email and tell someone that they're busy. But then I'm in this position where I know that feeling. I know what it's like to be too busy to send an email. So it's interesting trying to navigate this very understandable frustration that my authors have with this knowledge that I have of what it's like to be so overloaded and so overworked that I do have a lot of sympathy for the editors as well. And then, of course, that trickles down to the agents who aren't able to sell as quickly or aren't able to sell as much to editors who are already overworked or whose plates are already full, which means we're not making as much money, which means we have to do work outside of agenting, which means we have less time to answer emails from authors, and then queries, which are like typically for people are usually like kind of bottom of the priority list because you have all your emails from your clients. So unfortunately, what I've just been seeing is that just keeps getting worse, especially at the publishing houses. I think there are things that we have been doing on the agent side, like particularly with my work with Literary Agents of Change. We're trying to support newer agents, trying to make the career more sustainable, but there's only so much we can do.
Can I stop
until-
you for our
Yeah.
new listeners? Can you describe what Literary Agents of Change is
Oh,
and its
yeah.
purpose, and just like pull us back a little bit before going forward?
So, Literary Agents of Change is a nonprofit. It was founded by the DEI committee of AALA, American Association of Literary Agents. So, the work we do is centered around these two programs. One of them is the fellowship program, and one of them is the mentorship program. Fellowship program aims to bring in new voices to publishing. So, like people who don't know yet whether they want to work in publishing, and they're hitting that obstacle of like they have to do a free internship, right? Or, they have to get something really low paid in order to learn about it. The fellowship is funded. They do get paid to learn over the course of a summer about the industry. And then mentorship is focused on newer agents, usually between like 1 and 5 years of experience. And they get matched with mentors who talk them through various points of the job, give them support, maybe that they may or may not be lacking at their home agencies. They get to connect with peers and learn what other people are experiencing. And of course, both of these programs focus on marginalized individuals. The goal being to bring more diverse people into the industry and then keep them there.
And you were saying before that they are working on how to deal with the fact that people are so overloaded and everything is so tough. I just didn't want to lose your thread from earlier.
Yeah. So mainly the mentorship program is just like a way to connect with peers, find out what other people are experiencing. So like a greater sense of comfort with what's happening in the industry right now. It's not just me, like it's something everyone's dealing with. It doesn't mean I'm bad at this. So that's been a big one.
That's
for
really
me.
important because most people do
Yeah.
blame themselves instead of blaming the system.
Yeah, exactly. And then as well, connecting each other to jobs. Everyone typically works in some other way, whether they have a full-time job or they freelance. So there is some networking benefits there. And then on top of that, we know there are different agency structures, different philosophies around mentorship within agencies. And so this program kind of functions as a little bit of a protector, trying to make sure everyone is receiving adequate training so that doesn't become a reason why they leave the industry. We do provide stipends to mentees, but it's used for business development. So they're not getting paid for the time they spend. But those are kind of the ways that we try to address this. And unfortunately, there's not too much directly that we can do to make agents get paid. But our goal is to like reduce the industry's dependency on unpaid labor. So we're doing what we can.
No, that's amazing. And I'm thinking about it in terms of, let's say we had one of those giant novelty checks of any size that we wanted, and we could spend it on whatever we wanted to make all of this work out so that agents don't have to start out working for free in one of the most expensive cities in the world. So we've kind of worked out the location issue. Thank you, I guess, 2020. And now it's a matter of how do we make sure that everyone is taken care of as they enter this really difficult, complicated field of work that's so unpredictable. The pay is so unpredictable. Without a crystal ball, you never know what investment of time is going to turn into something that can pay your rent. And without mentorship, all of that is terrifying. Imagine throwing someone into being a lawyer with no mentorship. And then at the same time, it's like, well, you need skills kind of similar to a lawyer and to a social worker. And if you are employed by a company owned by CBS, you still have to work for free.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
When you look at it that way, right? It's true. It's such a funny business. If you think of it from the writer side, because I think back to that time before I did this job that I do now, and I just looked at you all as, I don't know, these like rising, stars that just had the coolest job ever. And, this idea that you get to hang out with books and ideas and people every day, I was just enamored by it.
I mean,
like,
it is that too.
Yeah.
However, it is not that all the time.
All the time.
And you
Right.
don't get to that without years of stress and hope and poverty.
Right. So it's so good we talk about that, I'm pulling back to the writers too, because when we get too deep into the agents, I know the writers out there are like, well, what about us? We're here to get through this process, and so what are things they can do while knowing that all this stuff is going on and knowing that the industry is a pendulum that goes back and forth with ideas and how much they buy and what they're buying and everything else. How does a writer who wants to be in this industry as well push forward? What are the best tips for them in the querying trenches?
My most successful clients are the ones who persevere and who they are finding their motivation and their why outside of the industry, and they're not making it their end all be all. Unfortunately, I think that's like the nature of things right now. Like you said, Jessica, there's no crystal ball. You never know if something is going to sell, no matter how good it is. A theme, we always bring up in our agencies. Sometimes you sell something that you really didn't think was going to sell, and sometimes something you really thought was going to go to an auction is like crickets, right? And I think for writers, it's that way maybe as well. So for writers in the querying trenches, I would say I hope that they're finding their motivation outside of agents, as hard as that is to do, because the more weight you put on agents' responses, the harder it is to continue, and the fewer chances you are willing to give yourself to query, because then you start, I don't want to get reducted more, which is totally understandable. Let me stop, let me take a break, let me pursue something else, versus let me send out all these queries and then go do my life. And then let me send out some more queries and go do life some more, and kind of like leave them to grow by themselves.
I think my favorite advice that I don't know I don't know who said it, but it came up somewhere, is keep your eyes on your own page. So as much as you can in this industry, focus on what you have control of, which is the words and the ideas, and just keep going at it, and the more you do that, the more you are going to find that story that is a little different or a little sparkier, or it just hits the market just right, and
Yeah.
I think you're right. If your happiness is tied to a query letter, it's a rough day, and it took me a long time to figure that out. You're already having a bad day, and then slam, like the rejection comes into your inbox. You're just like, but just pick up your pencil and just keep working again. Start typing, just get it going.
I also think people sometimes get scared and then go about things the wrong way because they are scared. Say you have 2 projects. One of them, super exciting, doesn't match anything on the bestseller list. Second project, by meta tags alone, very similar to things that are selling well. A lot of writers would go for door number 2 because they think it's a safer choice. I would make an argument for the first door because I think excitement ultimately is what sells.
Yeah, the project that you're more passionate about, the project that's more exciting to you, it comes through on the page.
Yeah, we can feel it. Every reader along the way can feel it. Kind of like we can kind of tell how people are feeling when they write their query letters, right? If we can tell they think they have no chance, or if they're sad or tired, or it comes through, and then we start feeling those things too. But if you're writing something you really love, even if it's not easy to shelve, I usually think that is the best choice within some reasonable parameters, of course.
I saw on TikTok, there was one with the dowsing sticks, and she asked if books have souls. And the dowsing thing said yes. And I was thinking about that. And I was like, it is true. When you read a book that has all of those things, it has a soul to it. And it stays with you almost like a person. So just on that kind of vein, Stefanie, do you have a favorite moment in publishing where you felt like just like in your own soul with someone else's ideas that you're like, this is it. This is why I'm here?
I don't know if there's a specific project, but this past weekend, actually, I went to meet one of my clients for the first time. She had flown down from Canada to go to the Filipino American Book Fest in San Francisco. And I was only in kind of the room where they sell all the books. I was only in there for like maybe 10 minutes, but that was a moment that I had that was like, this is why I do what I do. Like everyone there felt so connected to each other. And I'm not Filipino, so I was kind of like in there watching everyone connect to each other. And it was really, really beautiful. People who didn't actually know each other felt like they knew each other. Everyone was like supporting each other's books. It was amazing to see so many books in one place that were by this one community. And I just felt like that's why I'm here. I want to create this sense of community. I want to see this sense of togetherness. And I want to make all these books.
Well, and people want to feel seen and heard and understood. And that gives a feeling of community and not being alone in the world. And books are perhaps alive in their own way of doing that across the miles. You can pop one in the mail and make someone feel as if they have a little bit of community with them. And it's so important. You need the right reader to really resonate with the work. And it's so important that we have those perspectives in our industry so that there's someone to see the work, see what's in there, and be able to say, yes, this is going to be important to somebody someday.
Yeah. And I always try to be that person. I feel like that's a big part of why I feel so passionately about bringing like more diverse voices into agenting, is because we are the first gatekeepers to traditional publishing. And so we need to have lots of different voices so that lots of different voices can make it in the industry.
Okay, so here's a thought experiment. You have $1 billion to invest in the industry and make it so that it is easier on folks entering the industry, easier on everyone. What would you invest in first?
Oh my goodness. If I could do like anything, not really limited by my
Anything you want. You could get
personal
everyone a swimming pool
influence,
as if you felt like it.
I would get most of the big publishing houses new ownership.
Yeah.
Put people who are like passionate about advocacy, passionate about changing the industry, like those people get to be in charge. And then hopefully everyone will start getting paid, stop being overworked. Because I really do think, as much as I really think there's value in supporting people at every level, it starts at the top. And we need people who are passionate about bringing new voices in at the top, making the big decisions. So I'll just be like, if you have $1 billion, then please change this publishing house.
Well, and I think sometimes about this and how much I wish I could set up like a fairy godmother fund, right? So like folks who have, just started out in publishing and then suddenly something goes wrong with their housing and they need 3 months rent to like have a place to live. I wish we could have some kind of like emergency fund like that. It's just so tough starting out. And I feel like if we had a way to at least make the financial part of it easier, then all of the other tough parts would feel a little bit easier too.
So this is a question. We've talked about the big players in this industry, but do you have any thoughts on going with smaller press, benefits of a regional press or a university press when it comes to some of these stories?
I do think that some of the more like unique or niche stories that I've come across find better homes and more support at those places. I think in terms of like support and involvement of the house and editorial vision, responsiveness, like marketing, publicity support, I think it still varies a lot. That's been my experience so far. And I am a new agent. I haven't worked with too many small presses, but I do think some of them very much feel like a small family and others of them still feel like they're overworked. And I think that has a lot to do, again, with just the limited funding that's available in the space, which is really unfortunate.
Well, once you get your $1 billion to work, I think everything will get better.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on the idea that there sometimes literally isn't time to send an email? Because I am right there with you, and I just don't know how to explain it to everybody. So I'm going to ask you. No pressure.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I think a lot of it for me has to do with space in my brain, wanting to give everyone the time to get a thoughtful email. And one of the ways I've been able to improve my response time is letting go of the thoughtful email and just saying like, I'm allowed to send an email that says, I got this, period. And that has actually, I think that has helped my authors too. Just like the fact that they get an email that says, hey, I'm this. But I think there are so many different levels to this job, so many different buckets. And then it's a struggle to prioritize everything in a way that feels good, because sometimes everything is on fire. Everything is a priority. And so some things that really are important just don't get done. And so, if I'm trying to send out something on submission and I have to schedule, 10 to 15 emails, one of my authors is having, a bad day and they need a lot of my emotional resources and support. My other contract job has a deadline and I don't know, my dog has to go to the vet. Like I have to do all these things and there's just not a lot of room at the end of the day to get on and send that email, especially if it's an email that warrants like a more thoughtful response. Sometimes I just don't get to it. And same goes for queries. Like if you can imagine all that plus the emails that need to be answered, and then how do I find some time to squeeze in queries, especially like if I want to get feedback. So I think it's hard to explain that all of the different tasks that are on us. But yeah, I'm curious if you have anything to add to that.
Okay, so I actually don't think that it is literally objectively time. If we are working with the idea of, time always being the same and objective, I'm not sure. I do think physicists believe it slows down and speeds up. And, anecdotally, we all have like, wow, this week flew by. Wow, this week took forever. And we all agree somehow. So big if there. But I think for me, it is more an issue of, as you were mentioning, bandwidth. Sometimes at the end of the day, I still have 10 things that are flagged with the 3 exclamation points for top priority. But I also feel like I've just left an 8-hour work conference or social event. And you know how sometimes you get to a point where your social battery, you just hit that wall and you're like, I have to go. Or if anyone gets in my way, I'm going to be like, move it. And I don't want to be in that space where I'm just going to be a little bit reactive because I'm out of resources. So I feel like when I can feel that low battery signal happening, it's time for me to go for a walk or, finally eat lunch at 5 p.m. or something like that. And I feel like, especially since so much of what we do, if we make a mistake, it's really bad. We don't want to be in a place where, we send a submission to the wrong editor or miss something in a contract because we keep working when we're past that place of having any focus.
So what you're basically saying is that agenting is like parenting. And when you're at the point where you start hiding in the bathroom and people are slamming on the door trying to get in and you're just like, I'm in the bathroom. I just need a moment. I mean, I think that we all can understand that. And I think if we look at it from the writer's perspective too, it's also frustrating, and they have the same problems too. They're trying so hard. They're trying to put things out there. They're making mistakes. So if we're listening to this, I think like we all need to give ourselves a break if we make a mistake, and we all need to give ourselves the permission to say, I have done enough today. I will try to do great again tomorrow. We have to do that, or it doesn't sustain itself.
Yes, but on our end, sometimes, what is that saying? Done is better than perfect. Sometimes that's not true on our end. Sometimes we really, really have to get something perfect or there will be absolute consequences. So I think that's why sometimes it takes so long, because we are choosing perfect over done.
Something I want my authors to know that I'm always thinking about them, even if I haven't emailed them, especially if I know I have an email from them in my inbox that I have to get to. I'm thinking about it after work. I'm like, oh, I need to send that email. And then from there, I'm like, oh, what does this person have that we need to send out on submission? What are going to be some of my edits for this piece that I've been sitting on? The other night, I was trying to fall asleep. It was like 1 a.m. and I suddenly had this terrible panic, thinking that this year was somehow 2025, and I had double booked 2 of my authors' picture books to sell at the same time in the same season. And I was like, I'm going to be in so much trouble. I messed this up. Like, I'm going to have to go to this editor and that editor and tell someone to move. And then I remembered that it was 2024 and everything was going to be fine. But that's an example of how often I'm thinking about my client and how they're doing.
I think it's so important you say that, because writers don't often see how scary it is for us, the idea of making a mistake. Because if we make a mistake, like that. So for example, a lot of authors would be like, so you send out 2 picture books at once, so what? No, that's going to limit which editors can have it at the same time, which is going to limit the sales potential of each book. And then, you don't want the 2 books to compete with each other. You don't want the 2 authors to feel like you're favoring one of them. You want to feel like you gave everybody their very best possible chance within your power. So anytime you do any little thing that could have possibly messed that up, like I've thought for weeks sometimes of like, oh my gosh, I get to send it to one editor at this imprint and I was between 2. I did all this research. I went with this one for this reason, but what if I was wrong? What if that decision is why the book doesn't sell? And so, yeah, you will sometimes not hear email from us for a couple of days, but meanwhile, we're like ruminating on all the things that we could have possibly done wrong in this situation. Did we do it wrong? When will we know? Like, when can we calm down about that? What about this other thing? I don't always have the bandwidth to be like, got it, thanks. But I will spend, gosh, I think I just spent a week and a half, 2 weeks waiting for the epiphany of how to exactly say the right thing for a PM listing, because I knew that we really wanted Subright's interest for this book. And I wanted to show how beautiful it was, but the beauty doesn't have that much to do with the plot. And so to get everything to do with like how gorgeous the world is, how the magic works, how, of course, you will want this for your film potential. Of course, it will work in other countries. To put all of that into the one line for PM, I was just sitting there and I'm like, I'm taking forever, but I have to get this right.
Oh my gosh, that last thing you said like lands really hard with me. I'm taking forever, but I have to get it right. And I would apply that to everything from edits that I'm sending to my clients, to sublists, to schedules, to even interacting with the editors that my clients have sold to. I want to maintain a
absolutely.
relationship. I want to make sure they like me also.
Yeah.
So that they'll like my prayer. Yeah. Have a question.
I wrote to one of my clients' editors and sent her a meme that I thought was hilarious and completely pertinent to something that we were talking about, and she didn't reply. And I'm like, oh my God, she hates me now. Sure, she'll get back in a couple days and it'll be fine. But then I'm like, did I just ruin things for my client with one meme? Oh, no. I think this is so important, though, because writers don't see the side of things, because what we are taught is basically be the way that agents are at conferences, right? We're on a panel, we're in a suit, we have tough things to say, we're always friendly, we have a witty answer to that, we have an answer to that, we're totally fine, we're confident, we're not internally freaking out. Why would we be freaking out? It's not like we have way too much pressure and no time. So I think one thing that writers don't really see is that a lot of the time when agents and editors get together, we talk about, what if I made this mistake? What if I did this other thing? Should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? I can only choose one way. I don't have a crystal ball. What if I choose the wrong way? Oh my God, I should have known. Or, all of the things, like maybe everyone else has a magic crystal ball and I don't have a magic crystal ball. Why didn't I get the crystal ball? Where was I when they were giving those out? Was I late for work that day? Oh my God, I was eating a coffee and that's why I didn't get a crystal ball. Like we're all like this. I mean, to some degree.
Okay, are you all like this? So
I don't know, Stephanie.
I don't know. That's my question, because I think we all want this. I think all the writers want this. What you're talking about, this very thing, is what they want. They want someone else to ruminate on their work and be a partner in their work. So what question should writers ask in the interview process? Is there one question that we can know if you are like this?
Wait, you all really want this?
I think we do.
Really? I thought everyone was like, I want someone who is so cool and calm. They're sitting there with their crystal ball. They know exactly what's in it, and they're going to do it completely efficiently. Every email is scheduled exactly 8 in the morning.
Oh my gosh. I think we want people that care. And that's what you're saying. We haven't emailed you, but we have thought about this one thing you've asked. We're ruminating on it. We want a really good answer. How do we, as writers, what question do we ask about workflow for you? What is the question? I'm not sure.
I think for me, when clients ask what my communication style is and they tell me what kind of communication helps them, what has been just really nice for me is telling my authors that it's okay for them to reach out and say, like, are you there? If I've taken a while, because that's really helpful to me, because I feel like that's an easier ask for me than to answer like an email with 5 questions in it. If they're like, did you get this? I just want to make sure, you're still there. I can be like, yes, I am, and getting to it. And I feel like we have that point of connection where we're on the same page and they know I'm thinking about them. And it helps me as well because I do have an absolutely incredible amount of emails coming in with 5 questions each, and each of them needs, 30 minutes to answer. And I just want my authors to know it's okay for them to be aware of that and also still advocate for themselves, if that makes sense. And also still say, hey, like, I do need to know that you're there. It's okay that you're not answering me, but I need to know you're there.
I think it would be interesting, especially if a writer has multiple offers, to say, am I allowed to check in, even if there are no updates, but it's been a while and I'm worried, and see what they say. And I agree, it's a much easier question. I think of it more as a like, all good? Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was so funny. I got one of those from my client yesterday, and I was about to dig into this amazing looking pizza. I'm like, more than all good. I have pizza sent, but that's easy. It's very easy for me to answer it. Are we good? Yes. It's much harder and lengthier for me to answer, well, what is our strategy with regard to this thing?
Right. Yeah. The strategy emails are the hardest.
Yeah, because you want to make sure you get it right, because it really could make a difference.
Yeah.
Are you sure writers don't just want the incredibly chill, everything's fine? Are you sure?
I think you all probably come off like that anyways, in comparison. This isn't real estate, like where it's like, get this one or this one, like I'm gonna get you a deal. It's a very different thing because it's creative thoughts and ideas. It's not as concrete. So someone that really thinks about placement and answers that are going to make you feel good, but do the best for your writing, I think all that's really important.
Well, I'm kind of thinking of Flat Stanley here. It's not like you're sending just a box with paper in it. You are sending something that is very valuable, and you want to know that someone understands that what is in this package is not just paper. It is
Right.
It is life. It is so much to you. It will be so much to your reader.
It's an emotional
it is a
baby.
vision. It is exactly. So you need to know that when you stamp that fragile, someone's going to pay attention.
I actually love that. This is my fragile heart on a plate. I'm giving it to you. And now you get to decide what to do with it. Good luck.
Yeah. And I mean, like, most agents are not UPS. They will make sure that it gets there safely. They're not going to like drop it down your stairs, leave it out in the rain. I think most agents really, really do take that seriously. And you just don't see the neurotic side of us obsessing about how exactly to get it there safely. We just tell you, yep, it reached New York. Here's your tracking number.
And I'm curious how, I think something that we've seen recently is agents leaving the industry and leaving behind their authors and in this really tough position. And I think there's like a feeling that those agents are terrible people, or they really messed up, they screwed their authors over, And in my head, I'm like, I wish the situation was better for everyone involved. I wish that the authors had been able to find a new home right away and stuff. But I also can't imagine the amount of guilt that weighs on the person who left, the conflict that they went through to decide to leave, the knowledge of the situation that they were leaving their authors in. And I think that ties a little bit back to like how much care goes into every decision, like the overthinking and the consequences of a mistake, that just brought up that for me. It's something that I always think about when someone leaves, like how much of a struggle that would be.
I think about that too. And I think about like when we do see an agent make a mistake and it's bad enough that it like becomes public. I worry so much for them because I know how bad I feel if I make even a little mistake. So, and everyone does, every so often you do your best and the crystal ball just wasn't there.
But humans are humans are humans. I mean, I can't, I think we all need to remember that.
But the standard, I kind of feel like we're in a perfect or bust economy. And we're not only in a perfect or bust economy, we're in a perfect and fast or bust economy. I really sympathize with people who try it and it's just not for them. I get it. It's a really, really tough and really, really specific thing. And I saw not that long ago on social media some author saying, how dare this agent who left, I don't even know who it was, but how dare this agent who left waste everyone's time by letting writers query them? And I was thinking, oh, friend, this is the least of the problems. What about their clients? What about that agent? What about that agency?
Yeah. And it's like, of course they have to accept queries because they're trying to make it work. I would think they're trying to make it work up until the very last second,
Yeah.
right? And so we don't know you're gonna leave. I mean, well, you do. Like you're thinking about it constantly, probably, but I think there's still that little bit of hope, right? Probably that you can make it work. And
Yeah. And there's not really a good exit strategy either, unless you
Mhm.
have zero clients, which is rare. It will be messy
Yeah.
no matter what. Okay, what's something hopeful? All right, so let's go back to our novelty check. So let's say I've got my novelty check. First thing I'm going to do, hire 20% more editors. I think this will be good for a number of reasons. First of all, more spots for more books. Hooray. Hopefully, this will also mean that these new editors get paid well, so everyone else gets paid well too. And it also means that every time we send out a project, there are more people who want it. So there's a greater odds of more people fighting over it and the advance being higher and the terms being higher. And everyone's got a snap too, because there are more editors who are reading and making offers faster too. So I think this would be a great place to invest if, any large companies happen to come across some of the billions of dollars they hold and decide to spend it on people.
If they could just not give an advance to that one, like, really big controversial book and instead give the money to all the editors, that would be great.
I agree. The world can do without one more celebrity memoir.
So, Endgame, we talked about some of the difficulties of this industry. What is the shining star for you? What is your northern light in this industry? Tell me your hopes and dreams.
Oh my gosh. Well, my North Star is my clients. They're just so talented. And I think their perseverance is something I admire deeply and respect so much. It makes me emotional to think about them and how much they mean to me and how much their work I feel like has impacted me long term. I think it's a privilege to be a little bit newer and not that young, but like a little bit younger, where I feel like maybe there's a chance I'll see a different industry in my lifetime and I'll get to be part of the change. And that's what wakes me up in the morning. It's what keeps me going. So,
Tell me more about this change you hope to see in the world.
oh, I mean, I feel like it's happening already at the individual level. Like a lot of people, I feel like, are really passionate about the same things that I'm passionate about. And I love connecting with them. And I think the thing is just, I hope that they all stay long enough to ascend, to those positions of power where they can make the decisions that make a difference. I think more marginalized writers are feeling empowered to tell their stories and to submit them, even though we're still not where we want to be. There are more diverse agents than there were, 10, 20 years ago. There's more ways to get into the industry. And I just hope that that continues to happen. And really importantly, I hope that it happens for editors as well. That's what I'm like really waiting on right now, is just for change to happen at the houses. And I think it has to. I mean, I refuse to believe that it won't. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
I also hope that we will have editorial boards where one person doesn't have to explain to everybody, this is important. Believe me, it's important. I want everyone to have backup in that room.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And I think we all know, at least abstractly, how important that is. So my hope is that our better instincts will win out and we will know eventually that is the vision we should all be aiming for. Can you tell us a little bit about how Literary Agents of Change is working toward that? You already have, but
Yeah, I would add we also have an equity directory that features agents of color, just to try to get us, more exposure, more queries. We do have like talks. We did a really, really interesting talk. It was like in conversation, the power of comping white. And it was about, what it means to comp to white books, white authors, and how that limits the success of BIPOC stories. And then there was another one in conversation with Black bookstore owners. And so I think a big thing is just like trying to get this conversation going, trying to connect people who need to be connected and light the fire a little bit so that more people are working toward this goal.
Is there a place where people can view those recordings?
Oh, goodness. I don't know if the in conversation recordings are up anywhere, but people can subscribe to the Literary Agents of Change newsletter and get alerted when there's more in conversation series, because we are going to continue them. It's on the website, literaryychange.org, and you can find a lot of things there. You can subscribe to our newsletter. We have a blog. There's a donation button. So if you do sign up, you'll be receiving a pretty good amount of information from us as we tell people about the work that we're doing.
One thing that's important to remember is even though everything is as hard and stressful as we have discussed, there's still so many people willing to face that stress, willing to overthink your book because we just love your work that much.
We're constantly thinking about you, even at 1 a.m.
That's true. Can confirm.
Stefanie, you're on faculty with us. Tell our listeners how they can meet with you.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing queries. I'm doing 10 pages and 30-page critiques. So, yeah, I love to see people's work. It's fun to connect with writers, and especially for my BIPOC writers and other marginalized folks out there, especially. So.
And a reminder, we do have a scholarship, manuscriptacademy.com/scholarship, and that can be classes, it can be meetings. It just depends on what seems the best fit for those who apply. Stefanie, thank you so much for talking with us about this. I think it's one of those things where it's like we all kind of have to just talk about what we're seeing from our perspectives in the industry. And then once people have heard enough perspectives, they can get a fuller picture of what things are really like on the side of the desk. Because again, we do feel a lot of pressure to present ourselves a certain chill way that we very much are not. At least I'm sure there are some people who are completely chill, but I haven't met them. So yeah, little did you know, your agent is thinking a lot more about your book than you ever knew. Any little line of feedback you get, we probably thought about that for an hour. So
Yes, so true.
Thank you so much, Stefanie.
yeah, thank you
so much for having me. This was really fun.
And where can we find you online?
So you can find me at ladderbird.com. You can also find me at stephaniemolina.com.
We are so glad that you joined us. And as always, we appreciate your feedback. Just head on over to the iTunes store and let us know what you think. It not only helps us make this podcast be the best it can be, but it also affects our ratings within the iTunes platform.
We'd love to hear from you. If you're feeling brave and want to submit your page for our First Pages podcast, you can send it to academy@manuscriptwishlist.com with First Pages podcast in the subject line. We'd also just love to hear from you.
And if you'd like to learn more about the Manuscript Academy and everything we have to offer, just jump on over to manuscriptacademy.com.